Defensively, we executed.
GA, the easy thing is to talk about the monster stat line, including the career high with 6 blocks or the 7 assists. But more interesting there was the body language. Robert Covington, Karl-Anthony Towns, hugging. There seems to be a lot of chemistry between the two, and that's what was missing in Minnesota. How important is that for them going forward and just seeing that small moment between those two?
I think ultimately it's going to be whether or not Karl-Anthony Towns is ready to play the way he played tonight, more consistent. And he's been better individually, no doubt about it, since the trade. Covington has really been solid for them as well. But it's going to be more a matter, is this going to be a playoff team? I like the fact that he was more active. Like, that's the issue. And listen, I do think that was part of the issue that maybe Jimmy Butler had, because Jimmy Butler knows how talented Karl-Anthony Towns is. But the question was he playing up to his potential on a consistent basis? And I think that was a big concern. When you look at the two guys Jimmy Butler's playing with now, I don't think there's any question that those two guys are better at this stage than Towns and Wiggins are. And they're in the Eastern Conference, which probably
and Embiid and Simmons.
Yes. And so I think for Karl-Anthony Towns, and I like how he's responded to it, he's playing at a level now where he's getting back to potentially being an all-star, and he's going to have to be if this team has any chance of making the postseason.
Well, to add to that, I mean, you talked about his body language, and those were two guys in that interview that benefited heavily from this trade. And Covington coming over and kind of filling that 3D role, shooting the heck out of the ball this season. But in Towns and the way they're using him within the offense, it seemed like he never figured out what to do when Jimmy Butler had the ball. And, obviously his point per game are up 2 points. And, he's playing defense. That was a huge question mark as well. And, you just see him playing with passion. But, GA, to your point, he has to play consistent. And I think in doing this trade, a lot falls on Wiggins and Towns. Tibbs did this trade, and, it's no secret. I mean, Tibbs isn't guaranteed for next year. So this is huge. This is a huge season going forward for the entire organization.
Looking at Minnesota, and we know how Tom Thibodeau is when he has his guys, they stay in rotation, they play heavy minutes. Robert Covington clearly there, but Dario Saric, looking at it, 19 minutes for him. Here's a guy in Philadelphia that had a bigger role, kind of having a smaller role in Minnesota. What are you looking for from Saric to see if he's going to be successful there or maybe needs to go somewhere else?
Well, he's 24 years old, and, Tibbs plays his guys, you're right. But at the same time, the NBA is always in need of a stretch shooter that can play the type of role that he did and played for the Sixers last year. So I look for, as the offense and the season continues, them to get him more minutes and him be able to fit in within the offense a little bit better.
It's going to be interesting to see because, if you go back to his second year, he averaged almost 15 points a game, so you thought he would trend. But he's actually went the other way.
Yeah.
The shooting from three, not as good the last couple seasons. Defensively, still a bit of an issue. And he's not a guy, and that's why the postseason is so important, because the postseason really shows us who you are. You're going to play against a team potentially 7 times. They're going to game plan you. They know your tendencies. And he struggled mightily last season. And so that's probably partly why you don't see the minutes growing in Minnesota yet, because he hasn't quite figured out how to have more of an impact on the game, whereas Covington has. And so I do think in order for him to earn Tibbs' trust, he's going to have to play better because he has not been great this year, whether it was in Philadelphia or in Minnesota.
Speaking of that former team, the Philadelphia 76ers paying a visit to the Portland. Russell Westbrook gets the look in the corner for the win, 4 for 22 from the field, 0 for 8 from three-point range. In Dallas, they win their second game in the last 9 tries, getting some clutch plays from Luka Doncic, DeAndre Jordan, and Dennis Smith. That's a growth victory for them.
Absolutely. And listen, they have been really good at home. They're having their struggles right now, closing these kinds of games out on the road. And so that's going to be the next step. I really feel like this team could be a playoff team this year. I mean, no Wesley Matthews tonight, who's obviously going to be a big part of what they do. Harrison Barnes, he's proven that he can score. Luka Doncic has shown you that he is their best player. So they're going to have a chance, I think, to make the postseason. They're going to be in that conversation. When you look at those teams anywhere from 6 to 12, and if I'm Dallas, I feel like we're every bit as good, and why can't we get there? And bringing over DeAndre Jordan also is paying big dividends.
I think it also says a lot that your best player on your team is a rookie. And a lot of times it takes a team a long time to adjust to a player coming in that young being the best player. And you see players like Harrison Barnes, you see Dennis Smith Jr. sacrificing their game a little bit and playing off of Doncic. And you don't see that a lot in terms of, obviously the caliber of player that Luka, he commands it. But I do agree with you. I think they'll figure things out on the road, and they are going to be in the playoffs.
They've got the worst road record in the entire league, 2-15. And to your point, the thing that makes it great for them is he's earned it. Like, they respect his ability because they see it every day in practice. And you know how it is when that's where it starts in practice, when you're out there with a guy, when you see his grasp of the game and how he plays it, his understanding of it. He's not your typical rookie. He is age-wise, but those 3 years he spent as a professional overseas have paid huge dividends for him and that Mavericks franchise.
And certainly for Dallas, they know, okay, Luka's going to get the ball in clutch situations, and you saw it pay off there. Dennis Smith Jr. looking around for Luka, gets a wide-open layup at the end of that game. But for OKC, they got two looks. Paul George, probably the better quality look. Russell Westbrook, relatively open in the corner as well. Your two best players get those shots you want.
Well, in terms of Paul George, obviously playing against a smaller defender, gets to a spot. He's known for knocking down that elbow jump shot 8 or 9 out of 10 times. So I don't have a problem with that. They changed up their set a little bit after the timeout, got Russell a look in the corner, but obviously with him shooting 4 for 22 from the field, Russell's the type of player where that shot goes in just because he's Russell Westbrook and he's going to continue to hunt those shots, and he usually finds his rhythm towards the end of the game. But they've won 10 road games this season, leads the league in road wins this season, and they've picked up defensively. So, OKC is going to be extremely scary in the playoffs.
Yeah, but to me, they lost this game. Their two best players both had a critical turnover down the stretch of that game. Paul George had the turnover off the crossover in traffic, and then Westbrook with trying to find George coming off that screen over the top, threw the ball away. Those are two live ball turnovers that Dallas was able to convert and score. And those are the plays you can't have, especially on the road in that kind of environment. So they're going to kick themselves more for those missed opportunities and the fact that they were able to give up points in transition on the other end.
Winning on the road so hard around the NBA, and Philadelphia 76ers, well, he's not in the 8th grade anymore. Lance Stevenson got that name at Rucker Park, GA, getting ready to take on the Sacramento Kings without one LeBron James. And that has not yielded very good results for LeBron's teams. They have not won a game without him since 2016. That streak continued when the Lakers lost to the Kings and the Clippers in their first 2 games without LeBron this season. Here's Luke Walton on how Los Angeles will look to snap that streak while LeBron sits out with a groin injury.
Hey, Luke. Decision yet on JaVale McGee?
He's feeling good. So we're going to get him out there tonight for a little bit and see what he looks like.
I know it's been about getting his energy back and his win back. How do you feel like you'll be able to use him since he kind of played short stints anyway?
Well, just, he's one of those vets we have on our team that's won a championship. So it'll be nice to get another, guy like that out there communicating, talking, playing. So he's on a minutes restriction, but how long we play him at a time will just simply depend on how he looks out there. It's going to be, his first real action in a long time. So I would expect he gets tired quickly.
Gonna have him start?
Yeah, we're gonna start him.
Luka, we know what happened in the Sacramento game, but you spoke about how you really liked the flow of the game, the way that you played. What was good about that, and what can you sustain heading into this one against the Kings?
Well, our defense was good. Our pace was good. We were, getting the ball. We slowed down in the fourth, which we got to do a better job of. But I just like the way we were competing, moving the ball, sharing the ball, getting after it defensively, not giving. We did a nice job of getting Buddy Hield off the three-point line. It's a big factor for them. Now we got to do a better job on some of the other guys out there on that three-point line. But overall, I thought we played a really solid game for the most part.
You
mentioned before you'd kind of crossed the bridge of Zoo and his playing time once you had everybody back. Any thoughts now how you might handle it?
Oh, he'll play tonight too. And again, it'll be something we're just constantly filling out. We have no idea what JaVale's going to look like right now, but Zoo will be on the court at times tonight.
You guys had 312 passes in that last Sacramento game, about 50 more than you normally average. What led to that degree of ball movement throughout that game?
Well, it's something we always talk about as a team. We want to, we want that ball moving. We want guys looking to attack and shoot when they're open. But if you don't have it, we want the ball moving. And we did. One of the things I was pleased with in that game was the way the ball was moving. So we're going to continue to encourage that. And I think we're with who we have right now. We're at our best when that's the case.
What triggers that type of ball movement? Like what leads to that result of 300 plus passes that you always want?
Just passing when you should. It's simple. If you're playing with pace and you're moving it on to the next open guy, especially the way a lot of teams guard us, where they load up the paint, we're going to have open teammates. And if you catch it and you're open, let it fly. And if you don't, then move it on to somebody else and continue to play that way. Puts pressure on the other team's defense.
Do you feel like the team has to move the ball more with LeBron out?
Yes, I do. I think obviously LeBron being the dominant player he is, he can get double teams and manipulate matchups and get us great shots. With the guys we have and when we had success last year with these guys, we were playing fast and we were moving that ball and everyone was was making plays out there, and that's where we got to get to again.
Have you seen enough of that the last two games?
Yeah, the ball. Yeah, I mean, it can always be better, and especially from a coach's standpoint. Watching clips, there's plenty of possessions where the ball should have moved more, but it's for adjusting that quickly with the injuries we have now. I thought the last two games had done a pretty good job of sharing the ball.
We do have guys that are better.
JaVale McGee making his return, will be in the starting lineup after missing the last 7 games. And as you heard Luke Walton say, he will be on a minutes restriction. The Lakers have lost 6 of their last 10, has dropped the 6th in the Western Conference. LeBron James out the last 2 games, those both losses. Rajon Rondo now out a month after he returned to the lineup for a short period of time. Banged up team right now. GA, when you look at them going forward, projecting to LeBron's return, what do you foresee them being in the West?
It's hard to say. I think this is going to be a culture challenge. And by that, I mean, this is a stretch where you have to figure out how good we can be without him. And they should have the approach, we're a good basketball team. LeBron, we're going to miss him, but we still should be good enough to win basketball games. And they've had a couple games in this stretch that they could have won. So, it's an opportunity game for guys like Lonzo to have more opportunities, not just to create, but to score. For Ingram, Lance Stevenson, guys like that, Josh Hart, they're going to need those guys to step up and have more of an impact on the game. And the beauty of it is, as a young player, I can guarantee you to a man, they're all excited about the opportunity to go out and play and be given more responsibility because they want to also see how much they've grown from a season ago. So if you're Luke Walton, that's the way you want to approach this. Guys, we're still a good basketball team. We're a playoff team without LeBron. And that's the message I'm trying to send to those young guys to get them to go out and play at a high level. And now it's just a matter of whether or not they have the confidence and the belief in their culture to be able to go out and perform.
Well, it's tough when you're missing one playmaker, but they're missing 2. I mean, and Rajon Rondo and LeBron James that are the only 2 members on this team that have championship experience. And by that, I mean, that's putting a lot of pressure on Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram to play and handle the ball and distribute. Lonzo has put up some great numbers, but down the stretch, they've struggled to score, and they have a lot of wasted possessions in the last couple games. I mean, they were up 14 against the Sacramento Kings, and Sacramento came back and beat them on a dagger by Bogdanovich. So, I think it's more so closing games where that youth comes out, not necessarily getting there, but closing. I mean, Kuzma's put up amazing numbers. He's contributed as well, dropping 30 in the last game. But, it's those closing possessions that are a problem of who's the go-to, who's calling the plays, who is getting them in the sets they need to get in.
Candace, even when you say that and you mention the Sacramento Kings, I mean, this is a team that's a bit surprising this season, but it's because they're young players, De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, they've taken their game to another level because they've had an opportunity to grow. So isn't this a great opportunity for Brandon Ingram, for Lonzo Ball to grow into those roles? And isn't this the perfect team for them to face in order to do so?
I think it's two different situations. You're playing against the Sacramento Kings and you're playing against the Los Angeles Lakers without LeBron. A lot of teams are looking at these games without a LeBron James and they're saying, we can go in there, we can get one. And especially on the road as well. I mean, Sacramento, the way that they played down the stretch with the passion that they played with, they beat them, single-handedly. I mean, De'Aaron Fox had a great game, but they got some contribution from Bogdanovich. But at the same time, this is a time for growth, but they got to win games. Yeah. This is the Western Conference. 1 or 2 games can separate them from being a 7 seed versus a 4 or 5.
Or being out of the playoffs. And the other thing I would say, to me, I look at the Lakers' issues defensively. Because in those 2 losses, their last 2 losses, they've given up over 117 points a game. So they've scored well enough to be able to win games. And sometimes, you know what, the other team, they get checks on the first and 15 too. Sometimes they're going to be able to get those stops. You've got to be able sometimes to get stops defensively. To me, the fact that they couldn't get those consistently down the stretch is why they lost both those games. And so if I'm Luke Walton, again, what do all the best teams in the league have in common? They're good defensive teams. If we want to be one of those teams, we have to be better defensively, and that's where they haven't been during this stretch. When they turned the page and became a consistent team, it was really because defensively they had improved so much from where they were at the beginning of the season. Now they've had a lapse back that they're going to have to try and reconfigure to get back to where they can win and have an impact on the game on that side of the floor.
Are there certain matchups that get you excited, especially young players? Because Lonzo Ball and De'Aaron Fox, I mean, that goes back to their college days, the first time you saw them match up against each other. This just has excitement, and it's good to see them play twice in the same week.
I think it's more so from De'Aaron Fox's point of view. I mean, obviously, Lonzo Ball is very nonchalant and won't comment in the media about rivalries. But you have those players when you're a player players that want to come at you, and you know it. And so you take it personal, and I think that's what Lonzo has done. I mean, his stats went up, and obviously his usage was higher. But that matchup has been fun, and I'm excited for tonight.
Well, keep in mind, from De'Aaron Fox's standpoint, we're both point guards, and you were picked before me. And I want to prove I'm better than you. So, that's a challenge that he has put forth. Give Lonzo credit, though. In the last meeting, Lonzo was terrific, clearly outplayed him. And that's the first time he's really outplayed De'Aaron Fox since probably high school. So that was an impressive performance. Let's see if he can match that and maybe get his team a win. Because Sacramento right now, we talk about the upstart Lakers and them getting into that playoff contention. Sacramento's right there as well with their young core.
De'Aaron Fox, Lonzo Ball, about to tip off in about an hour. Can't wait to see those 2 guys play again. I got 2 more names for you. KG, Jimmy Butler, have some things to talk about. Like, hey, why did you leave Minnesota? KG's heart is there. Let's listen to that interview next on Game Time.